Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Meepless and this is Literally Graphic. And today we are looking at the rest of the Gail Simone run on Red Sonja. Links everywhere I remember to put them to my initial thoughts video on Volume 1, Queen of Plague. These trades were published by Dynamite Entertainment in 2014 and 2015. As far as warnings go, lots of graphic violence, and well, no actual sex, lots of sexualized images. Not the most ever, but a mature action-adventure starring a woman who gives zero fucks. Skipping over the creator bios, see initial thoughts video, let's talk plot. Like with the Batgirl series, Gail Simone is skilled at organizing runs so that each story builds on the last, expanding the world of the protagonist in ways that flow effortlessly to the finale. Even better in this case because there was no cross-DC events and temporary firings to interrupt the flow. This structure also seems to generally involve us in the development arc that takes the, quote, strong female character from what we expect pre-Gail Simone into a much more pro-woman space, in the most expansive way possible, including, specifically in Batgirl, a transgender best friend for Babs, a anti-TERF stance that is backed up by Gail Simone's Twitter presence. In contrast to Babs, however, Red Sonja offers some more interesting feminist potential in how much more sexual she is. And I'm not just talking about the chainmail bikini, because one of the issues that I discovered in my initial study of the patriarchal gaze of the, quote, idealized female body was that creators were not satisfied with the sexualization of cis women characters who enjoyed their sexuality. They wanted to deliver the forbidden, the virgin part of the virgin whore dichotomy. This ran headlong into my growing understanding of consent culture and struck me as pretty disgusting, considering how much power the creators of these comics had over how willing/unwilling their women characters were. This is why Barbara's study desexualization is important to the Batgirl run, but not important to Red Sonja, a woman who gives herself over to all things physical with a lot of gusto. Going through the complete trilogy in digital form, I did want to highlight some of the different ways in which Red Sonja is portrayed. Honestly, generally not in the chainmail bikini, gasp, unlike in the Conan Red Sonja short series that Simone did with Jim Zub. Red Sonja remains a rather traditionally attractive hourglass figure, sans a brief period where her hands are reduced to rotting skeleton digits via an evil curse. Oh yes, and the plot at the very end where she swaggers in looking super badass in her bikini with all of her hair chopped off. I only wish the series could have continued, but such is life. Otherwise, it's a bit hard to talk about the way that Red Sonja is presented because it's more about what is not there than what is there, at least as far as the inside art is concerned. So there's going to be a few more mentions of the new 52 Batgirl. One of the keys to how disgusting I feel reading a comic that includes people presumed to have vaginas is artists like to create sight lines that point directly to them. Perhaps it was just the fact that Barbara is jumping around through the air all the time, but this literally happens all the time in the first couple volumes of the new 52 Batgirl. I sometimes wonder if it's just my prudish upbringing behind this, and I've kind of wished I had a discussion group to talk over my ideas with, but I think the patriarchal gaze is just that simple. Draw attention to orifices that the presumed cis male audience can stick their dick into. Reviewing all of my snapshots of Red Sonja, maybe it's just dumb luck because she's standing on the ground, but her legs and those of other women in the comic are generally only an ordinary amount apart. Clothing, or even just bent knees, are often used to disrupt the way that our eyes might move up Sonja's body to her crotch. Another interesting switch from what I've come to expect for women in comics is the way Red Sonja's relaxing body is presented. After all, it would be very easy to use these scenes of luxury, often including well-earned baths, to serve up Red Sonja on a platter to readers. And while these scenes may be arousing to some, I would argue that the way Red Sonja is being presented is on her own terms. For one, while I don't think that it would have been the end of the world if they had been, these scenes are not composed to tease or titillate. Sonja is not making eye contact with the reader or contorted in any odd-looking way that would clearly be drawing the reader in. She is also surrounded by other people, because another issue I take with much female sexuality as presented by the patriarchal gaze is often it includes scenes where the characters themselves are in private. literally placing readers in the position of peeping toms. The covers by Jenny Frison felt like a bit more of a mixed bag. The majority of them certainly fall along the lines of asexuality that is powerful and not submissive, even with the more pin-up quality of the work. That said, the issue 7 cover, where Sonja is being circled by crocodiles, and issue 13, where she's just standing next to a horse, are kind of silly and submissive, with issue 3 being the worst, in my humble opinion, not only using the unnatural body twist to present both boobs and ass at the same time, but also using clothing to make her appear even skinnier than this unnatural pose usually suggests. The anatomy on that alone is literally the worst. And to wrap things up with a nice little bow, the way my analysis of these things works, cleavage is almost always a powerful sexual energy, in contrast to the submissive feeling that drawing attention to bodily orifices gives me, especially since none of it happened on set. It was nice of Simone to include several short snippets of dialogue where Sonja is talking about her desire to have sex. Sonja also struggles a bit with her gender presentation, which was a very interesting subplot that continued through the entire series. Sadly, the series did not really take it the extra mile and really include a lot of sexy male-presenting people, which helps to break up the male as consumer, female as consumed binary. There was a guy with a giant dick bulge in a way that did strike me as out of the ordinary. So yay! Race representation continues to be pretty dubious throughout the series. While there is an uptick in the number of obviously non-white characters, it still remains within the boundaries of tropes of the swords and sandals genre. Disability versus ability is not touched on at all. You are either fully able-bodied or at death's door. Class, I suppose, is decently represented in a genre sort of way, since Red Sonja is almost always working for the most underdog, at least once she admits that she's wrong, and often changes her mission to side with the most oppressed people in any given situation. So yeah, not a read for absolutely everyone, but a fun genre romp that gives us a glimpse into what pro-white woman representation could look like. Bye all, keep reading, and resist white supremacy. And as always, Literally Graphic is recorded on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation. I live here because of British colonization, Indigenous genocide, and more geographically specific, Treaty 13, also known as the Toronto Purchase, which was finalized in 1805 between representatives of the Crown and certain Mississauga peoples. This treaty was a lie and has since been broken many times over. Saying so reflects only my own small steps towards knowing the truth and does nothing for reconciliation.